Hello, this is going to be a longer video and it's a bit of a special one. We are in Uzbekistan again, and what you see ahead of us is the South Aral Sea. And I wanted to talk about what happened here, the environmental catastrophe that happened in this area, one of the largest ones of the past 100 years, I'm sure. But first of all, this is not where we're going. We're going to a city called Moynaq in Uzbekistan, so we're going to turn around and head that way first. There's no ATC, I'll explain later, but might not even be an airport. We'll figure it out, but that's not the main thing. So let's go direct to 143. So this is the South Aral Sea, actually, in Uzbekistan. The Aral Sea has been divided into two after it began to dry out. And this drying out of the sea is a completely human-made catastrophe. So now we are going to turn to 143, which would take us straight towards where we hopefully will find an airport there. But everything you see in this video, all this land here used to be part of the sea, part of the lake. Everything has dried out. Everything has died. Everything here is killing people and animals and biodiversity in this area. So the Aral Sea was, until the 1950s and 60s, the fourth largest saline lake in the world. It is fed by two rivers, the Amudarya, which we've seen quite a lot through the last few flights, which runs through Turkmenistan and then Uzbekistan, and the Sirdarya, which runs in Kazakhstan, which we haven't seen yet, but we will. And just to look at the map, I mean, this is what we're doing. We're turning south. Anyway. And what happened in the Soviet Union in the 50s, so after Stalin, this was already in the Khrushchev time. This area of Central Asia, which is current Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, was designed to be a source of oil and gas, which is abundant in the region, but also cotton. The Soviet Union needed cotton, and for their clothing, of course, they wouldn't import it, so they had to build, grow it in the country, and it was decided that they were going to do it here because of the climate. But cotton, as you might or might not know, is a very water-intensive crop, and there is no water here. We are in the desert. The only water available was from the rivers, the Amudarya and the Sirdarya. So they began during the 50s and 60s a huge project of channeling and diverting water from the rivers to irrigate the cotton farms. And Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan especially became cotton producing regions. But the cost was to the sea, to the Aral Sea. It quickly began to dry up. It began to lose surface water, and that was compounded by the fact that cotton is not only very water intensive, it also needs, especially in this area, which is not ideal for planting cotton. It needed a lot of fertilizer, it needed a lot of pesticides. Now, of course, in the Soviet Union, there was very little regard for environmental standards. So you can just imagine how much fertilizer and how much pesticide has been used throughout the decades here. And all that fed into the rivers, and all that fed into the Aral Sea, which was receiving much less water than it was supposed to. So everything you see here used to be part of the sea, and it began to quickly dry up. And what did the Soviet Union do when it noticed that the sea was drying up? Nothing whatsoever. They just kept going. They needed the cotton. They didn't really care for the population, which was actually, during the 60s and 70s, actually enjoying an economic boom, because yes, of course, there were environmental concerns, but they were growing cotton, and living standards actually improved in this area throughout the 60s and 70s, but the tragedy was starting to happen. And then, of course, the Soviet Union disappeared after 1989. So the new countries of Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan were faced with this problem. They were building a lot of cotton, but they didn't have other stuff they needed. Food, most importantly, and water, most importantly. So they began to import it, and this led to a huge this forced transition into a market economy led to a huge spike in inflation and a huge impoverishment of this region, which was already suffering even more because the water they had speaking of Uzbekistan, from the Amudarya River was increasingly polluted and increasingly not enough to keep the irrigation going, and definitely not enough to keep the Aral Sea going, which was also a source of fishing and agriculture nearby. And what did the new governments of Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan do? Nothing. Because these countries quickly turned into very strict dictatorships, and as we know, dictators everywhere are more concerned about their own well-being than what their people had. They had a lot of oil, they had a lot of gas to make money from, and they didn't care about the suffering of the population here. In Uzbekistan, the situation is even worse because this place is actually the Autonomous Republic of Karakalpakistan, which means this is the land of a different ethnic group, the Karakalpaks. They are not Uzbeks here, so it was even easier for the government to ignore what was happening here. And what was happening here, other than the economic issues caused by the drying out of the lake, and I keep panning the camera so you can see the extent of the devastation. This was all the sea. We are flying 50 miles to what used to be the southern part of the sea, the city of Moynaq, which was Uzbekistan's largest seaport. Yes, but it was a port in the Aral Sea, and now it's dead. It has become a place for disaster tourism. People go there to see the stranded ship hulls and And the dust storms that have become common in the area, and those dust storms are even worse because it's not simple dust. There is a lot of poisonous chemicals in the soil which will not be cleaned, and they just fly up into the air and are dragged into the river, into whatever reservoirs they still have, into whatever is left of the Aral Sea, and it makes the situation worse in every possible way. The health indicators through this area have been worsening steadily throughout the decades. Child deaths at childbirth, both children and mothers, anemia, kidney disease, cancer, almost everything that can get worse in terms of health is getting worse in this area because of the widespread pollution and the lack of adequate water. And nothing has been done, at least during the 90s, the turn of the 21st century. The situation has also worsened the climate here because, as we know, large bodies of water do have a stabilizing effect on the climate. So summers here have gotten warmer and winters have gotten colder because there is no more lake, no more sea to be used as a temperature shield, so to speak. And wherever water is left in the Aral Sea has much more salt than it used to have, and of course much more pollutant. So fishing has plummeted, and bird population has plummeted, insect population has plummeted, and this is a total disaster area, and of course the consequences that people are leaving this place and going through larger cities in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, and this makes urban crisis even worse. Can something be done about it? Now, as far as I know, and I don't know that much, I'm not an expert in any way, both Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are still not doing very much to try to at least alleviate this the situation. Uzbekistan is one of the most water-stressed countries in the world. They get a lot of their water from neighbor Kyrgyzstan to the east, far from where we are. But as I understand it, Kazakhstan, in the north Aral Sea, we haven't been there, we will be there at some point, has started a couple of restoration projects which have had some success. The thing is, those projects were made with external aid from USAID, the American Agency for International Development. I believe they even started a large project in 2024, which was supposed to help raise the water levels in their part of the Aral Sea. But as you may or may not know, USAID has been shut down by the current US administration. So what's going to happen with this project? I have no idea. And not only this project, but several other projects around the world. So, yeah, this is very bleak. This is completely man-made catastrophe. Again, both in its origin and then in the inaction that followed once the desertification process was in place. Now, to go back to aviation, since you're 20 miles from where we are supposed to land, Moynaq has an airport. The airport is not in Navigraph, it's not in Siem Reap, so I couldn't use ATC. And when I tried to find it in Flight Sim, I had what I thought was Moynaq Airport. And when I got here to do the flight, the airport was in a completely different place. Even though it said it was Moynaq, if you look at the map here, like we're heading this is Moynaq Sea. There is a following. I wanted to land here, but the game was actually sending me to an airport around here. I don't know why. So we are going this way. There is some sort of airport called UTUDB. You look at the airport, it says Musée Story Aral, which I assume means Aral History Museum or something. And we're going there. I don't know if there's going to be a runway for us to land. I don't know if there's going to be anything for us to land on. So I'll start preparing for some sort of visual approach and we'll see if we can find some way. Let's stop talking about the environment and start flying the plane. QNH is fine. We'll start descending. About 2,000 feet. So we can see what's actually there. Try to improvise some sort of landing. I mean, I have no guarantee about anything. But again, all of this, as far as the eye can see, at least, especially to the east, used to be the Aral Sea. There are still remaining lakes that they have managed to keep, but this is a city that used to be a port. This was the southern border of the city. It's almost unbelievable, really. And again, even if the depiction in Flight Simulator isn't very exact or precise, I don't know where Azobo gets, I mean, how old this data is and how true to life it is. It's enough to suggest what happened here. So, yeah. I mean, I'm at the point that I don't really care if we can't find a place. I mean, if we can't, I'll just put the plane down anywhere. This is a simulation. Most of the time I try to do things by the book, but this is not one of these times. Oh yeah, we're descending 3,000 feet. Top at 2,000, I think. I have no idea what the terrain is. The city of Moynaq, which was never very large to begin with, has been decreasing in size steadily. And as I said, people just go here for tourism to see the disaster with their own eyes, really. The airport? If it is here at all, it should be before this, near this here, more or less. I'm going to turn left a little bit. And then turn right. This is Moynaq, you see the city over here. We'll turn right, so see if we can find somewhere to land. For landing here. If it is here, I don't know, it's here-ish. Let's and fly. Climb. Too much. Gear down. As I said, I'm not too concerned about procedures now. Just to get this plane down. Start turning right. If there is a runway, it's likely going to be really short too. I think there is something there. Of course, I have no wind information. Aral Sea. I'm going to assume that one way over there it's not. I don't really care. We'll land over here anyway. About to have 100 feet to go. I mean, it does look pretty because on the air, almost everything looks pretty in this planet, but yeah. good as far as the visual approach with no guidance whatsoever goes. We didn't have the GNS guidance. Can't afford to load too much. Not to land on the lake. Here we are. Anyway, Moynaq, Uzbekistan, where the Aral Lake used to be, the Aral Sea used to be. Thank you for watching this long video. I hope I wasn't too annoying, but sometimes you have to say things. Next time we'll go to Kazakhstan, actually. We'll start our long Kazakh trip. Some sort of taxiway, so I'll just enter here. And anyway, I hope to see you there. Thank you for watching. See you next time.